What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob, and of course, with my main man, Hayden. Mets Talk with Hayden right here on the channel. Hopefully, everybody is doing well and enjoying the Mets sweep of the Oakland A's. Hayden, quickly, with the channel, say what up to everybody and let everybody know about where to find your channel.
Yeah, what is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden. Hopefully, everyone is doing really well. No, don't worry. I'm not an A's fan. We got the Mets hat over here, everything. Just repping for today. Hope everyone's doing pretty well. Just watched that insane game. My heart was pounding, sitting in the hot sun all day in the nice Florida weather. So I'm pretty exhausted. But hey, listen, I'm here to talk some great Mets baseball. The Mets had a phenomenal week, only losing one game, as you could tell on our lovely scoreboard here. Only one red. So I like that. That's good. Definitely a lot to talk about with the Mets, of course. So it's going to be a good stream. But yeah, if you're watching this on Rob's channel, definitely feel free to check me out. Mets Talk with Hayden. And if you're on my channel, vice versa. So if you want to hop back and forth or something, go for it. But yeah, otherwise, great week. Like the results, definitely could always do a little bit more, but we'll be talking about that. But yeah, otherwise, phenomenal week for the New York Mets. LFGM.
Absolutely, man. And listen, it wasn't pretty. It was ugly. Let's be honest. There's no reason to, make excuses for winning games like this. But I got into a couple of arguments with a couple of people that saying that I rather have them win, but I want them to. I rather go with the saying how they win rather than did they win with the question. And I don't care what anybody says, but I think everybody cares about did they win rather than how they won. I mean, yeah, it matters in the moment, but 3 months from now, you're not going to care how you won the ball game. You're going to say, hey, that sweep was important against the A's. That was it, right? And I'm going to put up that poll tomorrow on my community page. Do you care about how you win or did you win? I think that's the most important thing is did you win? Because they won. Again, there's going to be people probably in the chat. There's going to be people probably on your stream and my stream in the coming days when we have them where they're going to say, oh, we barely beat the A's.
Win's a win. At the end of the day, who cares? I mean, last year, late August, early September, the Cubs came to town, and everyone was expecting the Mets at least to take 2 of 3. The Cubs swept the Mets, and arguably one of those games determined the Mets' future. So at the end of the day, good teams beat up on bad teams. That's how it should be. Look at the Phillies right now. They're losing series to the Reds and the Rangers. Yeah, well, the Rangers are good, but the Reds and the Marlins. These are games you have to win.
Correct.
The A's are pretty bad. I mean, they're a AAA team in my opinion, arguably AA. They're not good, but they're still baseball players. They're still capable of throwing 95 to 100 to the mound. They're capable of fielding ground balls, hitting the ball, and like I said, that good teams beat up on bad teams. And considering the week ahead with Giants and Dodgers, yeah, you needed to sweep. 2 of 3 would have been great. I would have been a little upset if you only took 2 of 3 just because, like I said, the week ahead. But, yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be good yeah, no one's really going to care down the line.
No, I don't think anybody should care about how you won. And like I said, it wasn't pretty. Again, I'd rather win all my games 10-0, but that's unrealistic for any team, no matter how good you are. The Phillies, right? They lost 11-0 yesterday against the Reds. Should they call the season and that's basically it? No, right? So, like, it really doesn't matter how you win. It's did you win, and those games matter. And we can bring up 3 or 4 games in April where the Mets should have won last year. That could have made all the difference in September. That Brave series might have not mattered if you won 2 or 3 more games in April that we blown, right? Are we going to go back to the how we won that game, how we lost that game? No, it's just a loss at that point. So at the end of the day, the Mets won. The Mets got the sweep. That's what they were supposed to do. And as you see on the bottom of our video, our pictures right now, the Mets just won 5 of 6. Right? It would have been nice if it was 6 of 6, but they won 5 of 6. Right? This week was a good week of baseball games. 5 of 6. They played extremely well against the Padres. Remember, the Padres were coming in red hot, taking 3 out of 4 against the Braves. And we're going to start with that series since that was the beginning of the week when it came to the Padres. The Padres were red hot coming into Citi Field, winning 3 out of 4. Their last 3 games against the Braves after they lost on the walk-off in the first game. Padres are coming in red hot. Everybody, we were talking right before the series started. Everybody thought we were going to get swept or lose 2 out of 3 easily, right? You saw it in the chat. Right. They took 2 out of 3, and they played extremely well in that Padres series. And we act like we're not playing well. And I don't care what anybody says. Even if the Mets haven't played great, they're 10-6 by not playing very well this year so far, for the most part. And would you rather last year, where you didn't have any bad stretches for 140 games, or maybe we're having adversity in April and it's going to help us in September? We really don't know that. But with the Padres series, and let's start with that since that was the beginning in the beginning of the week with the Padres, a nice start for the Mets, 5-0 victory. It was somewhat of an easy victory. It seemed like the Padres didn't even want to be there. They did travel across country to that. They traveled from Atlanta to the Citi Field, so they didn't get an off day when the Mets actually, were playing straight with the rain out and all that. They had an off day and all that stuff, but they played well in that series. And we're not going to go through every game, but with that series, I think it was extremely important for the Mets to take 2 out of 3 right before the West Coast trip, the 10-game West Coast trip, because as we all know, the West Coast trips are one of the hardest, especially when they're long like that. And going 500 on the West Coast trip is probably not a bad thing, but the Mets needed to take 2 out of 3 at the least against the Padres to at least make their fan base believe a little bit, because they had no confidence going into that game. I went to 2 of those games. I went to the first game. It was 5-0. I'm going to tell you right now, it was dead at that ballpark at Citi Field, because I don't think this fan base is confident in the Mets. And then when they won that game, you saw game 2, a lot of people showed up. I mean, they had crowds all 3 games, and they were really, really good. And the crowd was great game 2, and the Mets lost. Game 3, the Mets fans were great. Mets fans have a problem believing, and I understand that because we've had daggers in our hearts so many times with this team, heart-crushing losses, just terrible, terrible situations that we lose. And it's been well documented, and we all know that. But the 2 out of 3 meant everything for this Mets team going on the West Coast trip, and I think it's helping them during these games. Even though it was against the A's, the adversity is something that the Mets didn't have last year, and when they got it at the end of the year, they couldn't recover. Now you've seen this team recover after a Brewers sweep, recovered against the Marlins, then the Padres, and we've been recovering, and we won 5 of 6. We won, what, 8 of 9, 8 of 10, or 9 of 10? 8 of 10 over the last 10 games. There's no problem there, right? It's pretty damn good right now. And I think we have to expect to go into LA and beat them. But with the Padres series, what do you think about the Padres series? Or we can finish series. But Hayden, what do you think about why was it so important for the Mets to take 2 out of 3 against the Padres?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously one in terms of revenge. I think that gave Mets fans a lot of, I guess, confidence. One, that the Mets are capable of beating a good team like the Padres, because the Padres, they are a good team. So are the Mets.
Yep.
And we saw, obviously last October, unfortunately, the Mets did not do super well against the Padres. We're not able to hit off of them, and their pitching wasn't really able to do much. So it was really good to go out there, obviously take 2 of 3. I think you could have easily have won the second game. I think that was an easy win.
Yeah.
But just quickly going over each of the games, you look at game 1, Mets win that one 5-0. Tip of the cap to Max Scherzer going out there and rekindling all of his thoughts from one, obviously, that last time he pitched against the Padres, but for the third start of the season, really went out there. He didn't look elite. He didn't look like his old self, but you know what? Didn't give up any runs.
Yep.
Defense did their job. If they had runners on the corners, went out, ground ball, double play. He did his job. He drove up his pitch count, and I'm happy about that. Scherzer looked great. He did his job. His slider, he mixed up his pitches. Ground ball ratio was, much better than a fly ball ratio. Pounded the zone. He looked great. 6 strikeouts, so that was good. Mets obviously beat it up on Darvish, something that they needed to do. Obviously, Darvish has kind of been the Mets' daddy, I guess you could say, since all of his career, and he finally has a loss against them for once. So that was really good to see. Obviously, the Mets had that one inning where Guillorme and Nito were safety putting the ball down the line, so that was good. Obviously, the second game you lost 4-2. If that game was played last year, you would have won that. Unfortunately, just couldn't really get the job done. You put Escobar, you had Alvarez and Nito hit back-to-back, 2 guys who were big chase guys, really don't have much in terms of contact. And so unfortunately that was that. Peterson still pitched good, just couldn't really come up. And then obviously the last game was huge, where you saw a lot of power. You saw McGill pitch another gem. McGill's been another great guy. He's been huge for the Mets in April. And I think, we saw last year he was huge until DeGrom came back. I think he could be that for when Verlander comes back. And even if Verlander's still back, I think he could have a big contribution to this team. Bullpen looked good. Obviously, Nimmo got on base plenty of times. Lindor, Alonso. Tip of the cap to Alonso. Obviously, in the Padres series, he looked great. In the Athletic series, he looked great. So really happy the Mets took 2 of 3 from the San Diego Padres. It was much needed. Because like I said, a sweep would have been nice, but I'm not going to complain. You took 2 or 3, and if you take 2 or 3 from good baseball teams, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Astros, that's what you need to do. I'm not asking for sweeps. I'm asking for series wins. I think you should sweep the bad teams like the A's and the Nationals and, those franchises. But, overall happy with the Padres results. Good to finally get some revenge. And who knows, maybe, we'll see him in San Diego, and maybe we'll see him again in October. You never know.
Maybe. Absolutely. And you gave good analysis of the Padres series. Like that was actually pretty good. It's like, people did not talk about enough what the Padres did to the Braves, right? Some people consider the Braves one of the best teams in baseball. Well, the Padres clearly handled them easily 3 out of 4 games, and they came to Citi Field red hot. And people act like the Mets didn't play well against the Padres and made it seem like, oh, well, it was 2 out of 3 great, but they should have swept. Okay, fine. Yeah, we understand that. But winning series after series after series, what the Mets did a lot last year, gets you to 95-plus wins.
Yeah.
If you do the math, it's very simple. And winning series, look, sweeps are nice. We always want sweeps. But no matter if it's a terrible team or not, it's hard to sweep series. It really is. Right? And no matter who you play. And with the Padres series, I think it actually not just made the Mets fans believe a little bit, but it made, I think, the team believe a little bit after the Brewers sweep. I think it made a big deal to the players saying, hey, you know what? We got this. Yeah, we're not playing great, but a team that's not playing great is 10-6 right now. Right? If the Mets had the Phillies record at this point, we'd be destroying them because of their offense. But they're still winning games despite the lack of consistent offense throughout each and every game. And Michael, who is a big supporter of the channel, I think he's a subscriber on yours as well. He's a very pessimistic Mets fan, like no doubt. Like you might hear a couple of positive words, and it's not a negative thing to say about you, Michael, at all. I'm just saying, you being realistic, you killed this team a lot, which is understandable. You've been a Mets fan for a very long time. You've been through hell with this team, but he just said, I'm beginning to become a believer. This is one of the most pessimistic subscribers on my channel. And if he starts believing, this is what the Mets starting to do. Not that they're barely winning 2 out of 3 against, or you're barely winning 2 games out of 3 against the A's. That really doesn't matter. But that made him believe. What did coming back after being down again made you believe, Michael? I would love for you to explain that in the chat. But you are a very pessimistic Mets fan, which probably most of us are. But you are very one-sided, for the most part, negative in the stream most of the time, which is understandable because the Mets have destroyed your soul like everybody else. But even he just said he's starting to become a believer, and that's great to hear because they're 10-6 playing average baseball right now, offensively at least, and they're 10-6, and they've beat the Padres, who everybody believes are better than them, has an extremely better lineup, which I don't agree with because if you really think about it, have you seen the Padres 6-9 is terrible. And listen, I think I'm not saying you have to, wave your pom-poms and, start throwing the confetti up in the air, hey, we're going to win the World Series, but start to believe a little bit because the team never had adversity last year until September or late August. And they never recovered from that late month adversity, the last month of the season adversity. Maybe it was a real good thing to have adversity early on to see how this team recovers. And they recovered by winning 8 out of 10 after that Brewer series. I think that's a big deal, Hayden, 100%. And look, it's making Michael become a believer. It's crazy. See how simple that is? I'm sorry. I'm looking at the comments. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I was too. I mean, I agree with you on that. Like I said, at the end of the day, a win's a win. I mean, I think most of us are New Yorkers or from Jersey or whatever. And we're very passionate about our sports teams, which, is a good thing. And I think considering how the Mets have kind of always, quote unquote, lol Mets, whatever that mentality is, I don't blame a lot of people for that. This is a franchise who either can't have a certain superstar stay healthy, Jacob deGrom, or, I don't know, go to World Series and just sell out or playoffs and sell out. So, like I said, enjoy the time while you can. Enjoy the regular season. Mets are playing well. They're winning ball games, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You got a long week ahead, so I'm pretty excited for this franchise. And, you actually have talent. This isn't a rebuilding organization. This isn't a team that has nobody. This is a team that does have players. You have guys like Alonso, Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil. You have superstar pitchers. You have good organizations. You have good players. You have an owner that's actually willing to spend. I'm not the biggest Billy Epler guy. I will say that, and if I get heat for it, I get heat for it. But I'm not the biggest Billy Epler guy. Haven't been for a couple months now, and I mean, hot take. I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Epler is on the hot seat. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, the Mets are going out there. They're winning ball games. Like it says in the comments, the Mets are doing what they need to do, and essentially that's what any organization should do. So, it's early, so it's a small sample size, but we will see.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm not going. I'm not saying this team is great. This team is nobody can beat them. But it's not. That's not the point. And they're showing highlights on SNY right now of Mark Vientos going 2 for 3 and 3 for 3 in the doubleheader at Syracuse. So he's another one that's raking in the minor leagues along with Mauricio. And now, before we get to the Oakland series, obviously the news before today's game was Brett Baty is being called up from AAA. It's about time. I mean, me and Hayden were talking right before the stream. I mean, Escobar's a disaster. And I did say last Sunday, I did say that Escobar is going to get the Oakland series to show that he can provide some type of production, and or the Mets are gonna just do what they did, and they did. I knew they were gonna call up Baty before the Dodger series if Escobar didn't do well, and they do that because you cannot go into the Dodger series with this lineup the way it was, because it just doesn't make sense. You're not going to win ball games if you play like you did the last 2 days against a team like the Dodgers. You're just not. And you know what? The Giants aren't a great team, but they're a decent team. They're like middle of the pack type of team, but they can beat you. And it's the Mets West over there. It's the San Francisco Mets over there with Conforto and Davis and Ruff and all those guys. But I think it was important that they called up Baty, because this lineup is struggling a little bit. How they won, I have no idea. Right? We got lucky, but you need a little bit of luck to win some ball games. Absolutely. But going with Brett Baty, Buck has had an issue with these guys since last year, not playing these guys every day. Like Alvarez, I think is not going to be the best hitter in the world. I don't think he's going to turn out to be, the guy everybody thinks he's going to be, but I think not playing him every day is hurting him offensively, at least. With Baty, do you think Buck is going to start Baty on a consistent basis and sit Escobar, since he's a veteran, since Buck loves his veterans? What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to need to start playing Baty. And if that's the case, Buck is also going to be another guy who's going to be getting slandered a lot and going and have a lot of negativity around him. We've seen it with Francisco Alvarez, how he doesn't like to play him as much. Finally get to see Alvarez play back-to-back games, or 2 games in the series, whatever it was. That's good. Alvarez is one thing. He's a catcher. He needs to develop. Stop letting him, you need to let him go out there. And, do I think Escobar is necessarily, or not Escobar, do I think Alvarez is necessarily ready for the MLB? To an extent. I think obviously he needs a lot more when it comes to his catching and offensive approach, but that's a story for another day. When it comes to necessarily Brett Baty, he is going to need to keep him in the lineup. And like you said, I know Showalter is very fond of his veterans, and we've seen that. Not even veterans, just guys that have the experience. So when it comes down to it, I'm hoping Escobar does not get many more days in this lineup. And like you said, this was the Oakland series. It's the perfect time for him to get his numbers up. Perfect time for him to go out there. He got a hit against a position player. Oh my goodness, congratulations. That's so good. No. So I think Escobar is just completely horrible to watch. You look at his at-bats. He looks so lifeless, swinging at all these silly pitches, ground ball, double play. He's an automatic out. He's 4 for 47 or 48, whatever it is now this month. And, when the season began, and I said, when, you look at Escobar going, 4 for 48 and something, that's going to be a complete issue coming down the line. So like I said, his time is limited. So yeah, Brett Baty is a guy who is just going to need, I guess, essentially to get the starts over Escobar. And, I'm not expecting Baty to come up and immediately rake. And trust me, I could see him going, 2 for 20 and everyone saying, oh, he's not ready, send him down. But at the end of the day, would you rather have Baty go out there and go 1 for 4 or Escobar go out there 0 for 5 with, 3 strikeouts? And I get it. He's funny. He dances in the clubhouse. That's great. That's awesome. But unfortunately, he ggets paid to play baseball and not dance. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's unfortunate because I like Escobar. But again, I thought it was going to be one of our best signings when we signed Cannon, Marte, and Escobar within a couple of minutes of each other, right? And I thought it was going to be a good signing because I thought, the Mets got Escobar to be protection in the 2022 season for Pete Alonso. That was the whole idea. Escobar early on was batting fifth a lot in 2022 early on until he did not perform. He didn't start hitting until late August, early September. And, you can't count on that. And again, he started off terrible, worse than last year. So I just don't know.
Can't wait till September. You can't.
Yeah. You can't wait until September. Not with this team struggling for offense. And you got, last year, Baty and a couple of other guys, they weren't really hitting as good as they are now in the minors. They were doing well, but they weren't hitting like crazy like they are now. Like every one of these guys, Mauricio, Vientos, Baty, all are destroying the ball in the minors this year. They weren't doing that last year. They were solid, but not where you have to say, okay, we have to bring these guys up. If Baty was struggling in triple or even doing okay, like batting 200-300 and, not showing the power he's showing, we would be clamoring probably for Baty to come up. But because they're raking right now, there's options. Last year, there wasn't really options because they weren't performing very well, or at least good enough to bring them up in the minors last year. They were doing very well, but they weren't doing enough. Now, we're going to see it. Look, Baty's batting 400 in AAA. 5 home runs, 15 RBIs in 8 games, 9, 10 games, or whatever it is. Mauricio, Vientos, all hitting extremely well. Major League Baseball is a whole different ballgame. It's a huge jump from AAA. Baty's facing pitchers that are never going to make the major leagues, at least 90% of them. These are guys that are never going to make the major leagues. They're not great pitchers. The jump from AAA to the major leagues is a huge one. It's going to be an adjustment. He didn't hit 200 when he came up last year before he got hurt. He had that one home run against the Braves his first at bat. Other than that, he didn't hit well. It's a small sample size, but let's, we all want Baty up. I think he deserves to be up, obviously, but let's not make these guys the savior yet, because you're going to crash very hard. You're going to fall hard to the floor if he doesn't do what he's doing, or at least close to what he's doing in the minors. I'm not saying he has to hit 400 here, but, give me 270. It's a hell of a lot better than,
as long as he could be serviceable.
Correct.
And I guess kind of have a little bit more upside than Escobar.
Yeah.
Then, I think it'll be much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ideally, a sub. Give me a sub like, 260, 270. He has pop. He has a little bit of power to an extent. His ability to go to the opposite field. He has more upside than what Escobar is giving you right now. And,
absolutely.
I definitely believe that Escobar could be a good ball player. He's just not being one right now. And the Mets don't have patience. They can't have patience, and I don't blame them for that. I'm not waiting till September. I said it last stream. I don't care about the Green Day song, Wake Me Up When It's September. You can't. And I get it. Escobar carried them in September, but unfortunately, there's 130-something games prior to September.
Yes.
And those games count.
Yep.
So, if it's situations like this, maybe it was, bases loaded, bottom 9 or, something, and you're down by a run and you get Escobar up and you freaking strikes out on 3 silly pitches, boom. So I definitely think Escobar, it was Escobar's spot to lose. It's not like, I think he knew it.
Well, he said it.
It's pretty, he knew it. It's obvious. You see a guy like Baty raking in AAA, and it's obvious.
Yeah, and they just put a quote on SNY during the post game. Escobar talked about it. He says, "Listen, he proved that he can do it in the minors. He's played well. He deserves to be up here, and he is the future." That was his quote. That was Escobar's quote. He knows his time is limited here. If he didn't perform, he knew Baty was coming up, and I guarantee you, they spoke to Escobar about this, and that's why when he brought it up. Look, Escobar is not going to be one of those guys that's saying, no, I need to play. I don't care about the kid. Escobar's a team player. Look, he was extremely mad when he hit that into that double play in the 10th inning. I mean, in the 9th inning, excuse me. He was pissed off. He wants to be good. He wants to perform, but he's not.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's frustrated. And he wants his team to win. And Escobar understands and gets it. And I think people have to, he knows he's struggling, and he gets it. And at this point, that's all you can ask for Escobar, knowing that he's going to be a bench player now for the hopefully. I hope Buck plays Baty every day, because if he doesn't, there might be a riot at Citi Field. But
that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Like Alvarez, Buck can come up with excuses to not catch him every day. We need some defense. He's still young. Whatever the Buck use as his excuses. Some people disagree. Some people agree. Nobody's going to agree with Buck if you don't play Baty every day. It's going to be a problem, because if Guillermo starts tomorrow and Baty doesn't, we're going to have. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to curse every single time on the stream tomorrow during the Dodger game. So. At the moment, I think Baty's going to play every single day. He might get a day off here and there. He might get substituted for a defensive replacement because Escobar might come in for defense late in the game to hold a lead or a tie game or whatever. Because Escobar, at the very least, because usually when you see players really play bad or have bad offensive starts or, weeks, they take it onto the field. Escobar hasn't done that. So that's a good thing. But Baty needs to play every day. I think it's very simple. If Buck doesn't see that, then Epler and Cohen needs to go into his office and be like, listen, I know you like your veterans, but these kids need to play. We're not bringing them up here to sit in the stands and watch the baseball game like the fans. We can't do that. He can't be sitting on the bench. It's just not happening. So I think Yeah, again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say. I mean, look at teams like the Braves, the Brewers. They go out there and they start them, and that's what the Mets need to do. And I get it. Last year's last year. This year's this year. Baty and all the other veterans have much more experience under their control. Since Alvarez is a much different player to compare than Baty.
Yes, 100%.
Regardless of their positions, but their approach, how they hit the ball, their strengths, their weaknesses, two completely opposite players.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how it is. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's like, listen, last year was a different story because Buck could just be like, we're winning. They were winning when Escobar was struggling. Everybody else was doing their job in the lineup. The problem now, the lineup is not doing their job from 6 to 9. And that's why people are clamoring. But last year, people really weren't clamoring for Vientos or Baty until what? Late August, when we were really, or during the trade deadline, when we started to struggle a little bit offensively and we needed a bat. Nobody was complaining April, May, and June because the Mets were winning ball games and winning series after series after series and didn't lose their first series until June. So it comes back to the fact that when you're losing, everybody, we're not really losing right now, but there is a big hole in the lineup. So that's something that we just have to, that's why people are really clamoring for these guys from the minors, because they're hitting well. So that's where we are with that. But when it comes to the Oakland A series, and let's get into the series, and then we'll talk about the two upcoming series against the Dodgers and the Giants to finish up the West Coast trip. I did a live stream. I did the live stream during that freaking 17-6 game. It was the worst baseball game I've probably ever seen in my life. And I watched a lot of baseball games. It was, 1, it was boring. 2, it was long. 3, it was just bad baseball all around. Now, I don't think the Mets played bad at all in that game. They scored a lot of runs. They were very patient, taking 17 walks. But 2 out of these 3 games took over 3 hours. I know it went to the 10th inning, but this game is going to already be over 3 hours, even through 9 innings. That first game was one of the worst games I've ever seen, and the Mets won. And I should be excited, but I couldn't wait to I had to leave for work. Like that's how long that game was. Like literally, I kept the stream on until almost the end of the game. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was annoying. So with that first game, what did you take out of that first game other than a disgusting baseball game by the A's and the Mets just took advantage of a bad team on that day?
In regards, to the A series. Yeah, I mean, let's pull up the scores quickly.
At least the first game, for sure.
It's been a very long day. I need to pull up the scores.
Yeah.
Game 1, that was all the way Friday. Yeah, it was an interesting weekend. 17-6, right. Yeah, no, Mets obviously, offensively, they did great. They did decent. They didn't do amazing. Crazy enough to say 17 is not crazy good. 11 hits. Obviously, the A's did out hit you 13 to 11, but you walked. Obviously, you had a career 17 walks with 17 runs, and that's good. That helped their OBP. Guys like Alonso, Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Vogelbach, the squad, they walked, and that's good. You beat up on their pitching, and it's what good teams do. It helped boost up their stats, and I'm happy about that. Like I said, game 1, you went out there, you showed a message. You went out there and you said, we're not going to let you guys make us look like fools. So definitely a good game, good win. Senga looked pretty good.
Gotta get longer.
The slash line's one thing. I think a lot of it was he was, these 40-minute innings from the Mets. So it kind of just put a little bit of fatigue and tiredness on him. So I'm not going to go after him too much with that. We'll see how he's like with the other West Coast teams, with the Giants or Dodgers. Bullpen looked good. Offense, really showed how they could walk. So boosted up your stats. Obviously, game 2, you won game 2, much needed win. Carrasco went out there, pitched well, and that was much needed. He got into one inning jam where he, runners on the corners, and he got the double play to get out of it. The velo concern is that the velo dip is still a concern in my opinion. Could that be the pitch clock? Could that be just wear and tear, his age? I think that's something that the Mets are definitely going to be cognizant and keep an eye on throughout the season. Like I said, I do think his spot is still a little bit on the line. Take it with a grain of salt. He went up against today's lineup. Yes, the A's lineup is capable of scoring runs and driving in runs. It's their pitching and everything else that's horrible, but still, it was an Oakland A's team. So we'll see. We'll see how Carrasco goes against a team like the Giants or Dodgers or, whatever other team. So good for Carrasco. He mixed up his pitch as well. His cutter looked good, fastball, no complaints. Bullpen looked good. Smith, Rayleigh, Ottavino, Robertson. Tip of the cap to Robertson. He's really been clutch, really been good. Hasn't given up a run at all this season. Knock on wood, of course. So, holding down the fort for Diaz. Offensively, obviously some power. Alonso, Canna. Alonso's been a man on a mission. Canna's waking up for bat. He's walking. He's getting on base, proving all the haters in a week wrong. Nimmo, obviously, with some more offensive production. And then, obviously, you look at game 3, the final game of this 3-game set. The Mets win it. Budo on the mound, 5 innings. Looked good, only giving up a run. That's something, the last start he had was in Philly, and it didn't look so great. So good to see Budo. He could definitely be a big guy, I feel. Bullpen coming to outings like this definitely has the potential, in my opinion, to be a decent starter, decent reliever. Obviously, the bullpen held down the fort. John Curtis, not so much, but tip of the cap to Yacobonis and Robertson once again. Defense, Nimmo, 2 great defensive plays. And then obviously offensively, Pham, Lindor, Alonso, really with some great stuff. Once again, Alonso, man on a mission. He is just making contact. And I tell you, I really think he can hit 63. Lindor's looking good. He's shortening up that swing, going to the opposite field, hitting the ball wherever. And that's what he needs to do.
Yep.
So,
overall,
good series. Mets 10-6, second in their division, and obviously the A's 3-13, last in their division. So it's a good week, no complaints. Offensively, maybe when it comes to the long ball, try to get guys on base. You don't want these solo shots because like I think someone commented before, solo shots are great. You take what you get. I think that's what someone said. But you like them to get guys on base because it's important. So we'll see
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, look, the Mets don't have a problem getting guys on base, right? I know they struggled a little bit today, and 3 solo shots. I get that, but the Mets don't have a problem getting on base. Maybe it would be nice to get the runners on base when we actually hit those home runs. Few and far between those. But yeah, it's like, look, it wasn't a pretty series. It was, I wish we won every game 10-0, and it would have been a nice easy sweep. But these type of games where, especially when you come back in these ball games, that brings a little bit of confidence that you can come back on in games. You never out, because this is why the Mets team was so great last year. They came back so much. They were never down. They were never out of any game. And I think you could say this about this team this year so far. I mean, we came back, I believe, 4 times this year. And I think it's important that you have comebacks like this, because I think it just makes it gives you that confidence going into games and series, when you're down early, like, all right, we can figure this out. We can do this. Look at this game. Look at that game. I think it's important. And I think, the Mets could have easily lost this game. Mets of the past easily lose that game today. Easily. And probably even lose that game yesterday. 5 years ago, this was easily probably losing 2 out of 3, because the Mets, they didn't have the brass balls to come back. Let's just be honest, to come back from these games. They got this little vibe and this confidence about them that I do think that just because it's against the A's doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything. And I think it's important to have these type of games, especially early on, because the adversity that this team has already, getting swept by the Brewers, not sweeping the Marlins, that's adversity. Yesterday, that was adversity. Losing and kind of hitting the big home run, coming back, winning that ball game yesterday, winning that ball game today, winning that ball game with the comeback with the Pete Alonso clutch home run to tie the ball game, and then getting a little lucky, but we got that run home on a wild pitch and Robertson saving the game. That's adversity, and that's only 16 games into the season. And I was just looking at the standings right now. The Mets are 2 games out of first place, and they haven't even played as well as the Braves yet. They're only 2 games out, right? And I know it's only 16 games into the season, and we should be scoreboard watching or standings watching yet. But the Mets are 7-3 in their last 10. The Braves are 7-3 in their last 10. The Mets are sticking with the Braves, and they're not playing as well as the Braves. So that should tell you right there that the Mets are finding ways to win when they're not at their best. And oh, by the way, for all the people that are talking about injuries to the Phillies that were all over my stream talking about, oh, the Phillies got Hoskins out and Harper out and this guy and that guy. The Mets are 10-6 without Verlander right now. And we're throwing out Jose Butto, and we already got 2 starters that weren't even supposed to be in the rotation to start the year in McGill and Peterson. Yet our offense is not even scoring more than they did last year. I think they're scoring 3.6 runs per ball game when they were easily scoring over 4.5 runs per ball game last year. So we're winning ball games by not playing our best without our de facto ace. And oh, by the way, Scherzer was supposed to pitch today and did not, and we still won. So we're winning ball games without our best performances, without our best, with Scherzer not being great, with no Verlander, no Quintana. We're winning ball games just like we did last year, grinding them out. Jose Butto last year was Trevor Williams, and we're winning ball games with Peterson and McGill right now, who are decent, but these guys weren't supposed to be in the rotation. So look at all the adversity within 16 games, and the Mets are 10-6. And I appreciate the fact that this team is still finding ways to win with the way they're playing this year, because they're not playing as well as they should be playing, with also the injuries. If you're going to bring up the Phillies injuries, which the Philly fans had no problem bringing it up in my stream, you can't bring up the excuses for the Mets. And the Mets have been playing better than the Phillies with injuries as well. Like the Braves, look at all the injuries they have, and they're 12-4. And they continue to win games. So are we going to make excuses for the Phillies, but not make excuses for the Mets and the Braves? But the Mets and Braves are winning. The Phillies are not. So at the end of the day, adversity matters. Comebacks bring that confidence to a team, even if it is against the Oakland A's. But guess what? They're 10-6. They've played good enough to win ball games. Not great. They could be better. Listen, if this Mets team played a little bit better offensively, we might have the same record as the Braves, 12-4, maybe 13-3. We might be talking about how good this Mets team is. And guess what? They're 10-6 by playing the way they are right now. So we talked about Oakland series. We swept that. We took 2 out of 3 against the Padres. That was the week, the last week that we just had. Good week. We're 7-3 in our last 10. We're 5-6 over the last 6 games. Well, we only lost once, which a game we probably should have won, but we didn't. 5-6 in our last 6. Great way to end the homestand and start the road trip. Now we're going to talk about quickly the Dodgers series first, that we played 3 games against them. David Peterson on the mound and May on the mound for the Dodgers. What are you expecting from this Mets team after this sweep from Oakland? And the Dodgers haven't been good. I haven't really checked their record. They're in second place. They're 8-8. They're 500.
Yeah, they've been okay.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not the Dodgers that we've seen in years past, dominant, right? But they've been good. They can beat you with no problem. You know, I had people on the stream when the Mets were losing 3-2 to the Oakland today, saying they have no chance against the Dodgers. Well, that's a joke. So, what do you expect from Peterson, number 1, in game 1? And what do you expect from the Mets against the Dodgers, who are at 500 right now, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, you really hope the Mets can try and at least take 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. One thing I just want to pin back to what you mentioned before was that how the Mets are winning games with Jose Budo. And, you know, like you said, 5 years ago, the Mets were throwing in Corey Oswalt and all those bums on the mound to do nothing. The Mets aren't doing that now. They called up, in 2020, it called up Peterson and replaced DeGrom. First, win. McGill, win. Budo. Now we're getting that. You have the depth. And I think that's very important. But back to Mets and Dodgers, it's going to be an interesting series. I think when it comes down to it, I guess the biggest thing is going to be the offense. These are decent pitchers to an extent. I'm just trying to pull up obviously, I think you're getting Syndergaard for game 2, which that'll be an interesting matchup. We'll see. Maybe day of he'll be sick or injured, but facing Dustin May game 1, he's been pretty good so far this season, returning from Tommy John. Pitching wise, he's been holding down the fort. Mets don't have many guys who've played against him. A couple of the Oakland guys like Canna and Marte have, Escobar, Castro, but not many of the guys in this order have faced him a whole lot. So we'll see how that goes. You have Peterson. Obviously, goal for Peterson is to keep that pitch count low. He has pretty decent numbers against the Dodgers. If he can keep his pitch count low, find the strike zone, you could expect him to have a decent outing. His offense could back him up, of course. Game 2, McGill versus Kershaw. Mets have decent numbers against Kershaw. It's kind of like 50-50. So try to get up on Kershaw. He's been decent this year. McGill, he's been great this year. Like I said, this upcoming series, you have decent fair pitch-up matches. It's just, can the Mets score runs? Can they hit with runners in scoring position? Because the Dodgers are a good team. They're not going to make the mistakes that the A's and other teams did where, you'll get second and third and 2 outs, and then, the Mets come up to bat. Can they drive them in? So we'll see. And then game 3, Scherzer, Syndergaard. We'll see. Is Syndergaard going to pitch? Hasn't been off to a good start this year, so the Mets can hopefully try and get him a little bit, show him off. And then Scherzer, another big outing for Scherzer. First outing against a really good team this season. His former team that he played for half a season. So it's going to be an interesting upcoming series. I think the biggest thing for these ball clubs is going to be to hit with runners in scoring position. There's going to be there's going to be outings and there's going to be times where, they'll get, an inning. Maybe it's the third or the fourth, whereas they're one of their pitchers is not looking super great, and you have to capitalize on that. You absolutely need to capitalize. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be an interesting week for the Mets, to say for the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, let's be honest. The Mets have been playing okay, and the Dodgers have been playing okay. It's going to come down to just what you said. Mets scoring runs, getting those runs in, running scoring position. They haven't been good this year. I think they're hitting just over 200. Or actually, I'm a liar. I think they're under 200 with runners in scoring position this year. That's got to change.
Yes, that's true.
As good as the Dodgers could be, they're not playing to their capabilities right now. At the very least, Max Muncy has been a beast. I think he has just as many home runs as Pete Alonso. I think he has 7, and then Pete Alonso has 8 now. So Max Muncy has been red hot for the Dodgers. Other than that, they've been struggling. They haven't been great. But again, if you talk to everybody else, the Dodgers are extremely better, and there's no chance. But like you just said, the keys to the game, obviously pitching well. The Mets have done that pretty well for the most part this year. If we get a little bit better with runners in scoring position, I think we're hard to beat. I honestly think we're hard to beat because our pitching has been really good. Our pitching, except for 2 games this year out of 16, that the starters have gave you no chance, and that was the 2 Brewer games, 10-0 and 9-0. Other than that, every starter has kept you in ball games. Oh, Carlos Carrasco, of course, that didn't really help again. I think it was against the Marlins, but other than that, they've been pretty solid. They kept you in all these games. The bullpen has kept you in games. The Mets had opportunities in probably 3 of their losses to win ball games by scoring runs. And I think that's where we have to look at, and you hit it right on the head. Runners in scoring position, they got to get at least a little bit better. If they're 3 for 10 instead of 1 for 10, that can mean the difference of winning 3-2 or losing 2-1, and that can be all the difference in a series against a Dodger team that is very dangerous, but haven't been playing to their capabilities as of yet. Do I think the Mets can take 2 out of 3? Absolutely, but I can also see them losing 2 out of 3. And I think that's where the Mets are right now when it comes to this Dodger series. I'm a little worried about this series, to be honest with you, only because of the way they played lately with runners in scoring position. I think they left a total of 19 or 20 runners in scoring position in this series. That can't happen. It's got to get a little bit better. You're going to get swept by the Dodgers if that happens, most likely. So if they play a little bit better, I think the pitching is going to be fine. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring series at all. I think there's going to be a lot of 2-3, 3-2, 2-1 ball games in this series, in my opinion. But if the Mets play a little bit better offensively and get a little bit better runners in scoring position, we might have a series like the Padres series where the Mets took full advantage of their pitching and shut down the offense of the Padres for 2 out of 3 games. I think they can do that against the Dodgers, because some might say that the Padres lineup is better than the Dodgers lineup. I think the pitchers
you can make that case.
It's close. But, some might say that if the Mets have pitched the way they did against the Padres and the Mets score 4 runs or more, I think the Mets are going to win 2 out of 3, and I think they can do that. So I'm worried about this series, but I think I'm confident enough that because it is the way the Mets came back in 2 out of the last 2 games, giving them a little bit more confidence offensively that they can come back, they can do some damage. I think they're going to have a good showing in LA to start the series with Peterson on the mound against May for Game 1. So I think we agree on the runners in scoring position. Again, we don't know how the Dodgers series is going to pan out, but let's talk about the Giants series to end the road trip. 4-game series. San Francisco Mets against the New York Mets. A lot of former Mets. They've been playing well for the Giants. I don't know what to think about it yet. I want to see what the Dodgers series looks at, but to break it down a little bit, let's talk about the Giants a tad before we talk about our channels and call it a night, and maybe answer a few questions if there's any.
Sure.
With the Giants, they're an odd team, right? They almost had Correa and Judge. They don't have Correa and Judge. They just signed Brandon Webb, who is Brandon Webb, right? That's the thing. Yeah, Brandon Webb. The Webb to a contract.
Logan.
Yeah, Brandon Webb. That was. See, I'm getting old. So they signed Logan Webb, and they're a good team, but nobody believes they're going to make the playoffs, right? They're probably a little bit above 500 team, maybe even under 500 baseball team. They are a team that I do think can cause a little bit of issues for the Mets because they can score runs. And somebody just brought it up in the chat, and thank you for that, Mike. They're flying across country to get back home against Miami. So the Mets will be in California while the Giants are flying from Miami. So that's exactly what happened with the Padres. They flew. I mean, they're flying across. The Giants are flying cross country. The Padres flew from Atlanta, but they didn't get an off day. So the Giants are gonna, maybe the Mets might get that first game against the Giants because they're flying across country. That might help us a little bit, and also they're actually gaining a few hours. So maybe we'll see. But with the Giants, what have you? I don't know if you watched any of the games or paid attention much. What do you think about the Giants so far, and what do you think the Mets most likely would have to do, which probably be the same thing, but against the Giants to at least split a 4-game set? Because it's hard to take a 4-game series. Most of the time, it's usually 90% of the time it splits. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing with the San Francisco Giants right now is I read a statistic that 60% of their home runs, 60.1, something like that, of their runs are scored via home run. And I think that kind of makes sense, considering you have a lot of guys like Jock Peterson, Mitch Haniger. I definitely can see why that's the case. You don't have a lot of contact-oriented guys. So for the Mets, if they can keep the ball in the ballpark, I mean, the analytics back it up that the Mets can win. Yes. It'll be interesting to see guys like J.D. Davis and Michael Conforto. Conforto's gone off to a slow start, to say. Hasn't been super great with the Giants so far. Obviously, small sample size. He does have 3 home runs in that small sample size, which I guess is good. J.D. Davis, actually, however, has been doing pretty good. I caught some of the Tigers and Giants game a couple days ago, and he actually did pretty decent. Obviously, his 341 average, 4 home runs. So hopefully that's not a trade that will bite Epler in the ass. I mean, obviously, Darren Ruff is back with the Giants. Obviously a fan favorite from the Mets. Darren Ruff is back with the Giants. So, yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see how this pretty much goes about. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, do what you need to do. Score runs against the Giants and keep the ball in the ballpark, and the analytics back it up. So, super exciting week. Ideally, what is it, a 4-game set or a 3-game set?
For the Dodgers? Giants 4.
Dodgers. So, yeah, it's a 3-game set against the Dodgers and 4 against the Giants. Yeah. Ideally, you'd like to take 2 or 3, and then you could probably take 2, 3, 4, worst split. So you have 5, 6, 7 games to play this week. 7 games in a week, duh. So there's no off days. So you have 7 games this week. Ideally, I would like you to go 5-2. I think that'd be very appropriate for the Mets. So
and that's that's a 8-2 road trip. That would be tremendous. Nobody would be expecting that. If we can do that, I mean, coming home against the Nationals before we face the Braves, being hot at the right time would be perfect for this team coming home. But yeah, like I said, that's why I think this sweep of the A's was so important, because there is a little bit of room for, a couple of losses here, right? You take 3 out of 7. If you go 3-4 in 7 games, not exactly what we wanted, but it's a 6-4 road trip on the West Coast. I think starting the road trip, if you went 6-4, I think you would be okay with that, right? If what would we have 3 more wins, so we would be 13-10 coming back home if we go 6-4. I think that's be fine, 6-4. But let's get greedy. The hell with it, right? Let's get greedy. Winning one more game in the Dodgers series or the Giants series, no matter if we split or win the series against, say if we take one game against the Dodgers and we take 3 games against the Giants, that's a 6-4 road trip, right? Yeah, no, 7, right? 7. That would be 7-3, right? 7-3. We can do it that way. Look, I think I think, and you know how people are, especially Met fans. It depends on how they got to 6-4. Like if we get swept against the Dodgers and sweep the Giants, people are not going to be happy because we lost to the Dodgers, who are a good team, and that's what the way people are going to think. But we ended up 7-3 anyway. Now, is that going to be a damper because we got swept by the Dodgers and swept the Giants? But what if we take 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers and lose 3 out of 4 against the Giants? Are we going to feel good coming home? That's where we are. I guess it's how you win when it comes to series. But if you go 7-3 on a road trip, I think anything less than 6-4 is a disappointment. 7-3, 8-2 would be excellent. 6-4, I have no problem with it on a West Coast trip. I think if you go on a West Coast trip, a long one, and you're 500, I think that's successful, especially the way the Mets have been playing. Anything less than 6-4, I would be disappointed, even though I would be okay with a 5-5 because it is a hard West Coast trip early on in the season. 6-4, 7-3, 8-2, anything better, 10-0. Hey. And you know, people are going to say, let's win the World Series now, right? Because, you know, all the bandwagon fans are going to pop up out of nowhere if the Mets go 8-2, 9-1.
They will.
They're going to be like, oh, this team is great. When they, you know, against the Brewers, they thought the season was over. You know, if the Mets go 10-0, I mean, I might just give them the World Series trophy, right? You know, that's the way people will feel. But I think that's almost unrealistic. But hey, you never know, right? Weirder things have happened, right? I don't know how the Mets won this game. It was Houdiniac, you know. So we got through the Padres series. We got through the Oakland series. We talked about the Dodgers series. What's important? Runners in scoring position. Got to get those runs in. I think that's crucial against the Dodgers 100% because they can score. And you got to keep pace with them, even though I think it's still going to be a low-scoring game against the Dodgers to win those ball games. You can't go 1 for 10 and expect to win a ball game. You can go 1-10 against the A's and win a ball game. The Dodgers, you probably won't. With the Giants, like you said, keep them in the ballpark. You know, they do hit a decent amount of home runs. You keep them in the ballpark, they don't score much. And I was looking at that the other day. They've hit a lot of home runs. I think they're 6th in the league in home runs. They hit a ton of home runs, but they also strike out a ton. So they're similar to the Phillies. They got okay starting pitching. They hit a lot of home runs, but they strike out a lot. So they're very one-dimensional. They're not a station-to-station team. They're not like the Mets, who put the ball in play for the most part. They're a team that if they don't hit home runs, they lose. Keep them in the ballpark. The Mets have a really good shot to at least split the series and a decent shot to take the series, or at least take 3 out of 4. So, Hayden, before we finish up the stream, somebody brought up, I think it was Mike, who says, hopefully Baty arrival will take some pressure off Alvarez. Do you think that's true, or you just think that Alvarez is in his own head?
I don't really think it'll make much of a difference.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like they're competing for a catcher or a roster spot. I mean, considering Alvarez has to be on the roster because you don't have a backup catcher, and Baty's on the roster because Escobar just flat out sucks. I mean, maybe I don't really think it'll make much of a difference. It's not like they're competing for the same position or a roster spot. But yeah, it'll be nice to see him up.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, you know, somebody brought up another good point, Easy BX, about McNeil. That's why it's crucial for McNeil to break out of this slump he is in. Yes, the Mets swept the series, and they had no production at all. 1 hit from McNeil in this series. I think he was terrible. So your batting champion, who was crucial to this lineup be successful, was basically non-existent against the worst team in the league. And if McNeil doesn't get it, look, if McNeil is going well, it would be so much different offense right now. When McNeil doesn't go well, you see how much this offense hurts. I mean, he just helps it a lot. So if McNeil gets out of this, I think it's only going to help us during the Dodgers and Giants series. But yeah, when it comes back to Baty taking the pressure off of Alvarez, I don't think so at all. I think it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on Baty because Alvarez isn't hitting. I think that's what it is. I don't think Baty's gonna, fold under pressure. I think he's on a mission right now. I think he was very upset how he performed before he got hurt last year. And he was clearly on a mission during spring. He worked out with Troy Tulowitzki in the offseason to help with his defense. He's gotten better defensively, way better defensively. We saw him in spring training, how much better he got defensively when we played that intra-squad game and when he came into the game that we went to. He got a lot better defensively. And Baty's on a mission, and I don't think that pressure is going to affect him at all. Not saying he's going to hit 350, but I don't think it's going to affect him at all. But when it comes to Alvarez, I just think Alvarez is just not ready offensively. He has a very long swing. You've seen it so far, being up for a week now. He has a very long swing. That's troublesome. He got a long swing and an uppercut swing. That's a disaster in the major leagues. You can't continue to swing like that because they're going to pump you high fastballs and they're going to throw you breaking balls in the dirt. And he can't catch up to high fastballs because of his swing. If he doesn't short up his swing, I don't know what we're going to see from Alvarez. Maybe they'll change that up. Maybe they see the problem up close and personal now. And when he gets back to the minor leagues at some point, maybe they'll work on shortening up his swing because
who we talking about?
Alvarez and his long swing.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, they might have to change that. Maybe that hurts his power a little bit, but if he doesn't put the bat on the ball, it doesn't matter. And when it comes to Alvarez, I don't think it's taking the pressure off of him. I just think that Alvarez is in his own head at this point. And when it comes to him, I just think that, I don't think there's any reason why it's going to affect either one of these guys. Alvarez has just got to start hitting. He's up here to hit. He's not up here because of his catching skills. He's up here because of his bat. He was the number one overall prospect in all of baseball because of his bat, not because of his defense. So if he doesn't hit, I don't know what we can do with him except send him down and bring up Michael Perez at some point. The Mets might do that, especially if Baty starts hitting. It takes the pressure off the Mets, keeping him up, because he's going to probably benefit from being sent back down, Alvarez. Bring up Michael Perez, solidify your defense at catcher, and if Baty hits, I think it makes it a lot more easier to send Alvarez back down. So obviously you don't agree that it's going to take off the pressure with Alvarez. I don't agree either with that comment. But
I mean, maybe watching his teammate and a youngling succeed.
Should he put a Syracuse jersey on? Maybe it'll make him feel better. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe something like that, if that's the route you're kind of thinking of, like, oh, my buddy's playing well, but yeah, I don't really think it'll do a lot.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're watching on Hayden's channel or my channel, before we finish up the stream and say our goodbyes, make sure you please hit on that like button and, of course, subscribe to both of our channels. Hayden, let everybody know what's upcoming on your channel, and talk about your channel for a second and let people know why they should subscribe to your channel. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone for tuning in, whether it's my stream, your stream. Definitely appreciate everyone for tuning in. As always, like I said, this is going to be a weekly thing. Every Sunday, we're going to be streaming it on my channel and Rob's channel, and obviously, depending on what time the game is, we'll kind of plan that out by ear. But yeah, otherwise, mainly just doing live streams, previews, and summaries, kind of like this, more in depth, going over Q&A, comments, questions, all of that great stuff. So I really do appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'll put the link in both of our chats and mine for Rob's, and of course mine and Rob's. And if you want to subscribe to each other, definitely please do that. That would be very great. Yeah, otherwise that's really all I got. We got a good week coming ahead for New York Mets baseball. Going to be super, super exciting. And yeah, I mean, I think that's really all I got in regards to today's stream. Like I said, just play good baseball this upcoming week. And yeah, I think we'll come back on here next Sunday and pretty happy for the most part. So yeah, LFGM.
Absolutely, LFGM. So that is Mets Talk with Hayden. Just put up his link to his channel. So come on, guys, subscribe to his channel. If you're following me and subscribing to my channel, trust me, I am not putting anybody on this channel that doesn't know his shit. Let's just be plain and honest. I like Hayden because he balances me out. I hate analytics with a passion. I think it destroys the sport. But Hayden, analytics is his thing. He goes in depth. If you watch his videos, when he goes into depth with his prospects, with his video that did very well, and just during his videos, his streams, whatever, he talks a lot of analytics, and that's why I think he sets up and balances me out with my lack of analytics that I like to use. After OPS and all that fun stuff.
Average, home runs and RBIs.
If I have to hear BABIP one more time, I'm gonna probably throw my computer
BABIP or xWOBA.
Oh, fuck that. I'm sorry. So I do think that this is gonna get even better. I'm gonna try my best to get what the hell was I gonna say? Get some guests on here. I try to send a message to Jerry Blevins. I'm trying to work out something with him to see if he can get in for about a half hour. Joe DeMeo, who is the guy that does all the prospect stuff with the Mets, and I think he's on the Mets Up podcast for the Mets as well. So with Connor Green, I think his name is, who I had him on last year about the top 10 prospects and talked about. I'm gonna try to get him on as a guest. And just to see where he's at when it comes to all these guys and talking about Alvarez a little bit. I really want to hear his opinion about Alvarez and his struggles. So I'm going to try to get guests on with me and Hayden during our weekly show. And this is a podcast, guys. So make sure that YouTube is very big on the podcast thing now, just like they are with the shorts. So make sure you check it out and check out last week's stream as well with the first show of the year. And keep on tuning in for more. So with that said, guys, make sure you make sure you subscribe to Hayden's channel. And of course, if you're on Hayden's channel, please subscribe to my channel as well. Hayden, it was fun. Mets 7-3 in their last 10, 5-6 of their last 6, and 10-6 overall to start the season. Haven't played great and still end up winning some ball games and being 10-6 I think is absolutely really good to see. And a little bit of adversity doesn't hurt early on. So, Hayden, thank you for tuning in once again and hosting with me with this show. And hopefully you guys keep on coming back for more of the SHEA Bridge Show right here on Talking Mets and Rob and Mets Talk with Hayden. Everybody have a great night. Let's go, Mets. Hayden, have a good night, buddy.
Let's go, Mets, baby. Let's ride.
Oh.
For all your Mets here.